Hi guys, it's Tracy on DOS. Welcome to my channel. Today's video is about the documentary Thirst Trap, the fame, the fantasy, the fallout. This is about the TikTok star, William White, and his innocent rise in fandom that led to obsession. So before we get into this, I wanted to mention that this video is for entertainment purposes only, so please like, share, and subscribe to my channel so I can build my community. Okay, well, William White, he is quite a young, handsome, pretty boy with abs and a very defined jawline. And this boy targets his prey, the cougar. So to start out with, we have to mention that this story starts in 2020. Now, it's COVID time, people have nothing to do, they're locked in their homes, and William, being a 21-year-old, decides he's going to start his social media page. He's going to start his TikTok, and he's going to get some followers because his dream and ultimate goal is to be an actor and a model. And these days, to be that, you have to have a huge social media following. It's not like modeling, acting of the earlier days where it's just based on your looks, because if it was just based on looks, you know, William would have absolutely no problem. He is the epitome of the model type. But it takes a lot more than that these days, and he knows that. So this starts his rise to fame in the TikTok world. Back to him targeting cougars. I mean, they have money, they have time on their hands, a lot of lonely housewives out there with nothing to do during the day, and especially during COVID. They're locked in their homes with their kids, or some of them perhaps don't have a significant other, so they're lonely by themselves and bored. And so this combination of timing and his will to become famous catapults him into stardom. So much so that these groups of women were so big that they started like veering off into their own special groups, like Gucci Girls, Grotto Girls, Williams Angels, thousands vying for Will's attention. And he's just getting more and more popular. The more money they gave and the more gifts they gave, the more shout outs they got. In 2020, 21-year-old William White blows up on social media. 2 million followers, lip syncing his way into their heart.
Seen William White on your social media feeds recently, lip syncing to retro hits. Well, then check your phone, it's probably broken.
21-year-old William White now has 2 million followers just by doing stuff like this. And I need you more than ever.
We gave up our lives to raise children, be married, but Whitey, your phenomena keyed us back into that fun part of our lives.
Hit after hit after hit.
Now remember, William's smart. He's not just trying to get a girlfriend here. He is trying to get followers. And so he really targets this particular cougar age range. The ones with the money and the ones with the time to give him. And so he picked a song from the 80s called Mandy, which is a Barry Manilow song. Huge at the time, and it's a great song. And women went crazy. This is around the time when they were doing the duets on TikTok where, you know, there's two sides and you can copy whoever duet you're doing it with. So Will would be on one side, and then the thousands and thousands of followers would be by themselves on the other side, you know, doing whatever he was doing, or making little goo-goo eyes over him, or, you know, whatever they did. But it was just everywhere, and it was huge. So much so that he gained even more and more followers. They loved his pearly white teeth and his tousled bedhead look with his hair, and they were just swooning over him. They could not get enough of him, and he ate it up. The more and more followers he got, the more gifts he got, the more money he got, and these women were looking for an escape. The older ladies were lusting after a boy that was the age of their sons or their grandsons. It was quite the phenomenon for sure. Billy Clarkson invited Barry Manilow on the show and then Skyped in William and talked about the craze, and this, like, I mean, the song just blew up again like it did back in the 80s. It was something.
This lip sync video of Mandy went viral.
Oh.
Here it is. You've got to see it.
And the timing was just absolutely perfect. It was like everything came together for William, and all of his dreams were coming true. So as the fans grew in their excitement for Will's videos, they started setting their watches to 5 o'clock in the morning just to see him live. And this is when it became more intimate between him and his followers, and they felt like they were his friends. And they started showing up where he was, and that got a little crazy and scary for Will. It was one thing when it was just him on one side of the camera and them on the other, but when they started showing up at his house, at the restaurants that he was at, that was a whole different thing. So it started a movement. These women started getting out of their depression during the COVID time. They started dressing up again, doing their hair and makeup. They were exercising. They were having this moment of getting their groove back, you know, and it was really healthy for them. They were also building friendships through the chats and through these groups that they were forming, really great friendships with other women, and it was a really bonding experience. So overall, in the beginning, it was a really positive thing for everybody. But there was one group in particular that really pushed the sexualization in all the lives, and it went from Will, you know, winking and rolling his eyes and flirting to, you know, taking his shirt off and doing these really sexual dances for the women. And it was just like they wanted more and more and more from him all the time. And the wink and the eye roll were women's kryptonite. They just couldn't get enough of it. One of the positive things that did come out of the beginning of this phenomenon was IMG reached out to Will. It's like the biggest, at least one of the biggest international modeling agencies. And for a modeling agency like that, of that caliber, to reach out to you, that is absolutely huge. And that was 100% Will's dream. He wanted to be a model and an actor. And this was the end game, getting somebody like that to notice him. But by this time, I mean, he was making so much money and getting so much attention. He just couldn't quit his social media game. And I don't think the modeling agency wanted him to. I mean, that was one of the reasons why they reached out to him, was because of all of his massive following. So, I mean, one day alone, he made $60,000 in gifts and money from his fans. So you can see how intoxicating that could be, and how he wanted to just push the envelope and do more and more so he could get more and more followers. It's very addictive in nature, the whole social media game. So mean, it got to a point where Will would just ask for a pair of, or not even ask for, he would just like a pair of really expensive shoes. He would say, oh, I really like those shoes. Those are really nice, on one of his lives. And immediately it would show up at his house in the mail, this pair of shoes. He'd be out to a restaurant with his friends and he'd say, yeah, we're at such and such restaurant and having a great time. And then his bill would be paid for. I mean, these women were so obsessed with everything he was doing and wanted to, you know, make sure that he had everything he wanted. He actually went to an event called Amphar and invited a bunch of these women to meet him out there. And they did. And I think he was shocked that they all met him out there. But he really enjoyed one of the women's attention. Her name was Dizzy Mama. And they had a night together and had a great time. And you know, you really shouldn't mix your business with pleasure, but I mean, he's a 21-year-old boy, and she was this beautiful hot mama, so he could not resist. And the women found out in the group, and they were so mad, they were so jealous, and they were so mean. And this is when everything kind of turned a little bit dark, and all these great groups of women that loved each other started turning on each other and kind of turned on Will too. They were like angry that he gave this one particular woman more attention than them. And there was a time when he was on, I guess Christmas time, he was on, you know, camera with his family, and after everybody started kind of arguing with each other, the women amongst their groups, Storm, one of his followers, decided to scold Will's mom about having his young sister on social media on a live, knowing that everybody knew at this point where Will lived. The address had gotten out and people were sending gifts to his mom's house where the daughter resided. And you know, Storm, being a mom herself, she was like, this is not good. You need to take this video down and you need to stop doing videos with your young children. This is very dangerous. And she really was just looking after the family's best interest. I mean, she was one of his biggest fans, and the problem with that, though, is it was the tone, I think, that she delivered this message, and it made a lot of people in the groups angry at Storm. And the very next day, she gets a phone call from her son, and he says, Mom, I just was sent some of your nudes. And turns out Storm had an OnlyFans page, and these were not just nudes, these were her, you know, pleasuring herself, and it was really disturbing to her. And I think this, you know, she vocalized what had happened in the groups, and not knowing really who would do something like this. A lot of fingers were pointed, and some even thought maybe it's Will, you know, maybe he was mad that she said something about his mom. But you know, Will isn't really that type of person. He is a sweet young man who loves his mom. He's not like a vindictive person, but there was a lot of women in those groups, and a lot of jealousy came out because of this one incident. And so some real true colors evolved here. And they did end up, she's turned over the information to the authorities, and they did find out it was a woman from one of the other groups. And of course the group let her go because they said that they had nothing to do with that. But it shows you what jealousy can do. And so around the same time, there was a release of hundreds of pictures of Will and his cousin naked, also pleasuring themselves, and that went completely out of control. In fact, a TikTok channel with a large following known for selling celebrity sex tapes got a hold of these files and were selling the whole file, which is like over 100 photos for and videos for $100. And was Will upset? Yes, he was upset about this, but he mostly was concerned because he felt the pictures were unflattering. Yeah. So this time was pretty dark time for him because of all of, he felt his friends, his fans were turning on him. So right after the time where Storm's pictures were released, Will and his cousin's nude pictures were released. And there was hundreds of these pictures, and a TikTok channel with a large following known for selling celebrity sex tapes gets a hold of these files and releases them to the public for $100. And it goes crazy. Everybody's buying these pictures. It's everywhere. Will gets a call from his agent. This is not good. Will takes a look at the pictures and he finds them to be unflattering, so he's very upset. And I believe this started his depression. He started to wonder why all his so-called friends were turning on him, and these were supposed to be his fans. And one of the groups started a cookbook, which was basically all of his pictures, his nudes, and they were sending them to each other. And I think the only reason that he kept going at this time was because the Grotto Girls had started an allowance for him, and so it really kept him motivated. It was kind of a monthly thing that they would raise amongst the group, and they would give him this money. And so he, even though he started to lose the desire to do this anymore, it wasn't fun for him anymore. It was a chore, and he didn't feel good about it. And he started in his videos to act out a little bit, to get angry at people, and just not himself at all. And it was mostly because he was really disappointed in the way people were treating each other and him. And so the depression started to build, and he finally went to his uncle and showed him everything, all the like texts that he was getting, and you know, all the hate and amongst the girls towards each other. And his uncle Bill was very in touch with Jesus and wanted to introduce that to William. He really felt that that's what William needed in his life, that this once very innocent endeavor became much more negative and dark, and he needed to get him, you know, back to the basics. And he arranged a baptism in Greece. Absolutely beautiful, and it was so powerful for William. And actually a lot of his friends and family went as well, and some of his biggest fans, who he considered friends and family, came out to support him in that. And although he can't quite tear himself away from social media, he has tried many times, he has emerged as a much more authentic William. He is, you know, not doing the thirst trap anymore. He's in his little hoodie, you know, showing what the day of William is like. He's a gamer, and he's not putting out those sexy videos like he used to. So I hope you like the documentary as much as I did. It is definitely a cautionary tale. It can be so disruptive in life when people start becoming super obsessive with anything really. And when people get away from nature and from the day-to-day and get obsessed in, you know, social media and TikTok and all the things. So anyway, I will see you guys soon, and have a great week. Bye.